Welcome back to SL Toons. Tonight we're stepping away from the cartoons and into something different. In February 1955, famous Funnies published Tales of the Great Book, a comic that treated the Bible like a sweeping Hollywood epic. John Lady's artwork gave this ancient stories weight, drama, and real cinematic scope. Tonight, we're reading the entire first issue, cover to cover. No jokes, no shortcuts. Just the story the way it was meant to be told. Joseph and his brothers. Back in biblical times, an old man named Jacob lived in the land of Canaan. Jacob had many children, but his favorite was his youngest son, Joseph, because he was a child of his old age. Jacob was so fond of his young son that he gave him a beautiful coat of many colors. Joseph was a dutiful boy, and when his older brothers didn't attend properly to their duties, he told his father about their carelessness. Now, when the older brothers saw that Joseph was their father's favorite, and that he had a more beautiful coat than theirs, they envied him, and wouldn't even speak when he approached. To make matters worse, Joseph began to have dreams, which he told eagerly to his brothers. He told them that he dreamed they were binding wheat in the fields, and that his sheaf arose from the ground and stood upright, and that their sheaves also rose and bowed before his. Then he told them about another dream he had had in which the sun and the moon and 11 stars worshipped him. "Does that mean that you will reign over us and that we will be your subjects?" his brother asked. "Yes," said Joseph. Joseph's words turned his brother's envy into intense hatred. One day, while his brothers were feeding their sheep in green pastures far from home, Joseph's father sent him to see if all was well with the flock. When Joseph was still a long distance off, his brothers saw him coming. "Look, it's Joseph," said one brother. "See his coat of many colors?" "Yes, it is indeed he," said another brother. "He has come to spy on us and carry tales back to our father." "He is a long way from home," said another. "Now is our chance to get rid of him for good." So the brothers conspired against Joseph, and some insisted that they slay him. They would have killed him then and there, except that one brother, Reuben, had another idea. "No," Reuben argued, "don't kill him outright. We don't want our brother's blood on our hands. Instead, let us throw him into that pit yonder and go away and leave him to die." As soon as Joseph arrived, his brothers grabbed him and stripped him of his beautiful coat of many colors. In spite of his tears and cries of protest, they threw him into an old well that ran dry. While Joseph sat crying, abandoned in the pit, his brothers sat about under the palm trees to have their lunch. When they were almost finished eating, they saw a wandering band of Ishmaelites on their way from Gilead to Egypt, riding on camels laden with spices, balm, and myrrh. "Here's our chance," one of the brothers, Judah, said. "Here's a good way to get rid of Joseph without shedding his blood. We'll sell him to these Ishmaelites as a slave, and they'll take him far away into Egypt." So the brothers lifted Joseph out of the pit and sold him to the Ishmaelites for 20 pieces of silver. Poor Joseph. His despairing cries of protest fell on deaf ears, and he was dragged off, a slave, into Egypt. To make it appear that Joseph met with accidental death, the brothers killed a young goat and dipped the boy's coat of many colors in the blood. Then they brought the blood-stained coat home to their father and showed it to him. "We found this coat in the wilderness," they lied. "It looks very much like Joseph's." The father recognized his son's coat immediately. "It is indeed Joseph's," he cried. "My poor boy! An evil beast must have devoured him." And old Jacob was broken-hearted, and he mourned deeply for many, many days. All his sons and daughters tried to comfort him, but he refused to be consoled. "I'll mourn for my son all the rest of my life," he wept, "till the day I am lowered into the grave." Months passed. The Ishmaelites carried Joseph across deserts and hills into Egypt and sold him to one of the king's officers by the name of Potiphar, captain of the guard. Joseph served his master well. He was a good and holy child, and Potiphar found he could trust him. Eventually, when he was older, Potiphar made him overseer of his entire household. Under Joseph's able administration, Potiphar's affairs prospered. His business ventures were successful, and his fields yielded abundant harvests, and he became a wealthy man. But Potiphar's wife and other servants conspired against Joseph and lied to the master of the house. In anger, Potiphar threw Joseph into prison. But the Lord, knowing that Joseph was a sincere and holy lad, saw to it that he was looked upon and with favor by the keeper of the prison. The prison keeper, knowing that Joseph was a boy who could be trusted, put him in charge of all the other prisoners. Shortly afterwards, the king, or Pharaoh, as he was called, became angry at his chief butler and chief baker. Fuming with rage, he threw them into the prison where Joseph was held. While in prison, Joseph became friendly with the two unfortunate servants and amazed them by his accurate interpretation of the dreams that interrupted their slumber. Sometime later, the chief butler was forgiven by the Pharaoh and restored to his old job. He moved on in the back inside cover. The year is 604 BC. The walls of Jerusalem tremble as the mighty army of King Nebuchadnezzar of Babylon completely surrounds the city. But too many of the townsfolk watching from the walls are already filled with the terror of the army of the mighty King Nebuchadnezzar of Babylon completely surrounding the city, preparing to destroy Jerusalem. While Nebuchadnezzar's soldiers standing guard at all the approaches to Jerusalem, feast on the fruits of Israelite labor. Young Daniel's fate. It is the year 604 BC, and young Daniel can feel the tenseness that grips all Jerusalem, for Nebuchadnezzar's Babylonian army has besieged the city. Like the elders, even the children try to hide their fear, but Daniel calmly plays a favorite ring game with his friends, Hannah, Mishael, and Azariah. Daniel is strong and fast and wins easily by catching the most rings. Azariah, the youngest, has trouble keeping his mind on the game. When much more interesting things are going on at Jerusalem Gate, Daniel coaxes Azariah back to the game. Daniel is not so anxious to play himself, but he feels he must keep his friends' minds off of what is happening outside Jerusalem's wall. Every extra strip of ground in the city is planted in a hopeless effort to feed the people. Faced with this grim fate, the boys do not feel much like playing. Daniel knows the coming battle is a punishment of Jerusalem for not obeying God's law. Prophet Jeremiah warned Jerusalem many times. People ignored Jeremiah's warning of this danger. Now it's all coming true. Azariah voices the thought in the minds of all the boys. Will we be slaves? We're unfortunate enough to be left alive after they attack, Marshall answers grimly. Suddenly a hoarse cry comes from a guard on the wall. Along with their elders, the youths rush up the steep, worn steps to see what has caused such alarm. The young lads tremble at the fearful sight below. We will all be killed, cries Azariah. Not unless God wills it, Daniel replies, comforting young Azariah. But Daniel has to cover the fear in his own voice as he sees Nebuchadnezzar's battering rams move to the wall, and hears the crying of women all around him. As the rumble of the war machines grow louder and the elephants come closer, the terrified citizens of Jerusalem scatter from the wall. But Daniel and his friends stand firm beside a grizzled old soldier who mutters, "This is a job for the king's archers." "Where are the archers?" someone shouts. "Yes, call the archers. Let them find out if they're in their keep," others cry out. But the grim-faced archers are already arriving. Due to hasty aim and nervousness, nearly all the arrows fall short. But the second volley is more accurate, and the elephants stampede, trying to escape the biting sting of the arrows, trampling their herders. Some seek shelter in the battering ram. Jerusalem's archers laugh and bleed at the confusion below and send volley after volley of arrows down them. Nebuchadnezzar has been watching the action from the hill in anger. Now he orders his archers to begin their attack. The Babylonian arrows are as thick as flies. Nothing human can live under such a downpour. So Daniel and his friends retreat from the wall. "What can we do?" Azariah cries. "Nothing, except pray and trust God," Daniel answers. "We must not lose faith." But with the defenders driven from the wall, the battering rams can be put to work again, and soon the gates are smashed open. According to custom, the victorious Babylonians loot the city and search for the likely-looking slave. It's just as Jeremiah prophesied, Daniel said truthfully. Now Nebuchadnezzar rides triumphantly into the city he has fled. To Daniel, this king does not appear as cruel as the stories told about him. I wonder what is in store for us, the man asked. We shall know soon enough, Michelle answered, probably regret it. At this moment, an officer of the king stops and looks. Why do you hide from me? The officer asked Azariah. He is young and frightened, Daniel explains. Now the 4 youths are ordered to follow the officer. You shall be taken to Babylon, the officer states. Daniel and his friends are to be torn from their loved home, brought to the strange land of their enemies, and a fate they can only guess at. It will be a long journey to Babylon, and the Israelite captives must walk every long mile of it through the wild desert. But Daniel and his friends bravely endure the hardships, helping the weaker by sharing their own meager supply of food. The lad's generosity does not go unnoticed. Prince Asmanaz sees. Those boys are the kind that King Nebuchadnezzar ordered me to look for. Just remember that. Finally, after months of weary travel, the magnificent city of Babylon comes into view, shimmering like a sparkling jewel on the horizon. Even a future of slavery must be a relief after toiling through the wild desert. You will be brought to the king. If he likes you, you'll be given 3 years of school. Later, as the Israelites rest beside the Euphrates River in the shadow of the great city wall, Prince Ashpenaz speaks to the 4 lads. If the king accepts you, you shall live in the royal palace like princes. Princes? When you are brought before the king, you must bow, so Ashpenaz instructs them. But we cannot bow to anyone except our God, said Daniel. You are in Babylon now, Prince Ashpenaz replies sternly. Here the law states everyone must bow to the king or die. Take my advice, lad. Forget your law. As they mount from terrace to terrace, Daniel feels an urge to look up, in passing, at a window. In a flash, the evil face vanishes. Startled, Daniel stares at the window, but it remains empty. The others have already disappeared into a dark archway. Now, as Daniel hurries to catch up, he seems to picture the ugly, foreboding face ahead of him, glaring in the darkness. His thoughts are broken by 2 pages leading into the room like a zone. Bow down, the king comes. On their way to the royal palace, the other youths try to persuade Daniel that it might be alright to bow to the king. Surely God will understand, says Hanan. Isn't it better than being killed for disobedience? Michelle adds. It's not being here to serve him. I am not sure, Daniel replies, that as he beholds the wondrous sights of this marvelous city, he is torn by 2 desires, to live in all this splendor, but still to please God. Only I didn't have to make a choice. Now the youths follow Ashpenaz up the steps of the famed hanging gardens of Babylon. The artificial mountains and terraces Nebuchadnezzar has built for his queen to help dispel homesickness for her own native hills. Gardens so magnificent that they will be forever remembered as one of the 7 wonders of the world. And King Nebuchadnezzar enters, followed by the evil-faced man Daniel saw in the window. It is Ut-Hamash, high priest of the pagan god Marduk. Did you not hear the command? He shouts, but Daniel has made his decision. Bow down to the king of Babylon, lord of the universe, the high priest screams. For this disobedience, I myself shall throw you into the fiery mouth of Baal. But Nebuchadnezzar interrupts the high priest's ranting. One moment, Hamash, I shall speak to this youth myself. Tell me, lad, why do you not bow down to me? When I pray to God, I bow down, and I cannot honor any man, even a king, as I honor my God. But these, your friends, also worship the same God, Nebuchadnezzar says. They honor me by bowing. Why is this? They have been warned it means death to refuse, Daniel answered, and it is only their frightened bodies that honor you, not their hearts. but I wished you to know that in truth in my heart, so I stood. After a thoughtful pause, Nebuchadnezzar turns to his aide. Mark well this youth who speaks his mind unafraid. When his 3 years of study are finished, he will be the greatest scholar, and bring honor to my name, and to all Babylon. I shall mark him well indeed, Hammurash mutters to himself, for he is a dangerous threat to my priesthood. And the evil priest leaves, dark schemes forming in his serpent-like mind. Now Daniel, Hanan, Azariah, and Mishael are assigned rooms of their own in the palace, rooms fit for a prince. And sumptuous food is brought, food fit for a king, for it is from the king's own larder. Like most boys who are always hungry, the youths rush to the tables of steaming rich food. We cannot eat this food, Daniel says, for it is not prepared under our law. It's a royal order, says Melzar, the steward. If you do not eat, I will lose my head. Daniel pleads to be allowed to eat a vegetable diet for just 10 days. You will see we will be just as healthy as if we'd eaten king's food. Omar agrees to Daniel's request, although he is risking his own life, but theirs by disobeying the king's order. Later, Nisroch asks his uncle, how can these Israelites learn so much faster than I, and why do they look so healthy? It is common knowledge in the schoolroom that Daniel and his friends do not eat the king's food. In this story to show customs of ancient Babylon. The story is based, say he read the book of Daniel chapter 1. So they disobey the king's royal order, do they? Come, now I know how to plan a method by which Daniel shall destroy himself. With the help of the great god Merodach, I shall not fail. A secret room deep inside the pagan temple of Merodach, Hammurash performs certain mysterious rites as he prepares an evil doom. At the end of the 10 days, Melzar is amazed. By Baal's great beard, why you look even healthier than the others? So while the other boys eat savory meat and drink sparkling spiced wines, Daniel, Mishael, Hanan, and Azariah eat only peas and water. I'm convinced. From now on, eat only what you want. I shall tell no one. Now the lads must apply themselves to the special schooling Nebuchadnezzar has ordered. Throughout the 3 years, Daniel leads the class in every field of learning, much to the anger of one pupil, Nisroch, ambitious nephew of the evil high priest Hammurash. Now all is ready. Hammurash and Nisroch hurry to the palace with him. Tomorrow is the day when the king will examine the scholars, so tonight's work will be well rewarded. It is kind of the great high priest to bless the food of the young students. Tomorrow our noble king will test their knowledge. This will help their minds to be bright. Hiding in an alcove, they wait until Melzar and his retinue appear with the food for Daniel and his friend. Later, how strange this food tastes. The next day, Nebuchadnezzar examines all the boys who had 3 years of special schooling. Daniel overshadows all in every test of learning and knowledge. But before the king can express his pleasure in Daniel, this foreigner has broken your law, O great and almighty king. He's refused to eat your food all these 3 years. But he looks even more healthy than all the others. Anyone can look healthy with powder and paint. Make him prove his strength by wrestling Nisroch between the pits, where the loser must pay with his life. If all this is true, we shall soon find out. Let them wrestle now. Wrestle? But how can I when I feel so weak and dizzy? Now Daniel, feeling a strange dizziness, looks Nisroch over carefully. But what if he's too strong for me? What will I do? Fool, you know he has eaten the drugged food. He will be as weak as a baby. Reassured that Daniel has been weakened by the drugged food, Nisroch leaps into the fray with confidence. Too much confidence, as he soon finds out. Swoop! In spite of his dizziness, Daniel seems to find a deep inner strength to sustain him in this ordeal. This is a battle to the death, where in the wicked mind of Nisroch, anything is fair. Punk! Stunned by the blow, Daniel is helpless as Nisroch pushes. With the hot breath of the lions on the back of his neck, Daniel prays to God for help. Then, as if a mighty hand were at his back, Daniel snaps upward and forward. The force of his tumble rolls Mizrock backward and over. Snap on his fingers, Daniel. Kick him in the face. Daniel is humane, and the king is pleased. If this is a result of living on vegetables and water, not eating my food at Amash, I think all the scholars should do it. So King Nebuchadnezzar proclaims Daniel the first scholar of the land. Daniel's faith in God has brought him the reward he so richly deserves. The same faith that will help and guide him again and again throughout the brilliant career that lies before him. The Saga of Samson. Moving into the Promised Land, some Israelites had settled peacefully in northern Canaan. Not so with the tribe of Dan to the south. The enemy Philistines have forced this tribe to live in the hills, fearing they will otherwise overpower their towns. For is it not said, the Israelite God has crowned one to destroy Philistia, one with the strength of 10, one named Samson. The day dawns with Samson in love with a Philistine maid, informs his father Manoah. Now therefore get her for me to wife. Why, is there no Israelite maid to please Samson? Disgrace the sons of Dan, begging for a heathen damsel. But Samson is strong of arm and of will, he will not be swayed. Manoah must buy the bride of Samson's choice. So Manoah makes ready, and proper gifts must be used in buying a bride. Gold, cattle, wine, sweetmeats, silver, oil, and all of these are tallied off. The caravan loaded, Manoah sets off for Timnath, in the lowlands, where once the bartered for the bride is completed, Samson will join. At last Samson sets out on foot, for his mighty legs can carry him faster than any slow-footed beast of burden. Approaching Timnath, he gazes down upon its green vineyards and golden fields of wheat, unaware that he is not alone. Until the young lion, gloried in its own effortless power, roars out a challenge, and it springs. Lesser men would crumple under such onslaught, but with no more fear than a young lover has for his lady, Samson smiles into his yellow-flecked eyes of fear. Suddenly his mighty arms shoot forward to grab the beast. Then a most bewildered lion finds itself whirled about like a helpless little kitten. With an outraged roar, he flexes his tawny muscles to break free, and the next few moments unfold a scene of carnage too fearful to behold, until Samson arises from the lifeless form of the beast and continues his way down to Timnath, where certain Philistines, learning of his plans to wed one of their fairest, hope to give him much more than an interesting reception. Mighty Samson enters the gate of his future father-in-law. There is a shout of ribald laughter. Does the bridegroom come begging for the bride, says one, who is noted for his wit, or a tattered beggar looking for a crust of bread? Always a lover of jokes, Samson joins in the laugh. Be it a bride or bread, I am told that with my hand stretched forth, it always receives something. Then, with lightning-like suddenness, the begging hand becomes a powerful persuader. Samson strides off to the inner court, having had his joke, and with profit, for his tatters are now covered by rich raiment. By the right eye of Dagon, says one, looking after him, I cared for no more jesting. Samson watches the wedding arrangements are completed, and the passing of a shoe seals the contract. By custom, he must now wait 30 days before the marriage feast begins. Returning to Timnath after 30 days, curiosity leads Samson to the place of his encounter with the lion, and he finds that the bees have made a nest in the carcass, and the honey is good. Shades finds with his parents, but will not tell from whence the honey was taken. For even now he chuckles as he forms a riddle to confound the young men of Timnath. In the midst of their pagan activities, they seek to ridicule the bridegroom. Surely, said one, this is all on the arm, leaving nothing in the head. This being so, answers Samson, you will have no trouble solving my riddle, and for a wager. And now the young men are hard out to it the riddle, out of the eater came forth meat, and out of the strong came forth sweetness. Wager each man to win or lose a new garment. Time limit, 7 days. Riddle's impossible, was a worried Philistine. We shall surely lose the wager, and Samson will have made fools of us all, and poor ones besides. But so the young bride is cornered. They threaten her. Get us the answer, or we shall surely destroy you, your father, and your house. Never has there been such wailing and crying in a bridal boudoir. It is obvious Samson does not love her, or else he'd not hide the answer from her. But even my parents have I not told, says he in defense. But how long can any defense stand before a young and lovely bride? Samson tells her of the lion and the honey, only to have it returned to him via the lips of the young men. He has lost a wager. Parting in fury to get the garments for his guests, all 30 of them, Samson knows that his wife betrayed the secret and plans a special revenge for the Philistines. Burning vengeance in his heart, Samson stalks from the wedding feast to collect garments from the enemy Philistines with which to pay the wager to the members of the very same tribe. He is to collect 30 garments in a few short hours without stirring up the entire town. When the 30th garment is captured, Samson returns to the scene of the wedding feast. If his collection of the robes is rough, no less so is his delivery of the same. There's a huge sigh of relief when the fiery behemoth storms out of the building, but the sigh is too soon, for Samson, the practical joker, has conjured another laugh at their expense. They emerge in their newly worn garments only to run into an irate mob searching for their stolen garb. Samson is not present to enjoy the scene. Back in the hills, he broods over the betrayal by his wife. However, the first step is made in his divinely ordained destiny to begin the utter destruction of the Philistines. And now we catch up with our story. Joseph was sold into slavery by his terrible brothers. 2 years passed. Then one night the Pharaoh had two particularly vivid dreams. In his first dream, he saw 7 fat cows come out of a river to feed in a meadow. Presently, these were followed by 7 thin and hungry cows who also rose from the river and stood with the others in the meadow. Then the thin cows ate the fat cows. In the Pharaoh's second dream, he saw 7 plump and juicy ears of corn on one stalk. Behind the 7 good ears, he saw 7 bad ears, thin and colorless and dry. And the 7 bad ears devoured the 7 good ears. Pharaoh was greatly troubled by his dreams, and he sent for all the wise men and magicians of Egypt, but there was none who could interpret them. While the Pharaoh fretted and fumed, the butler remembered the dreams that he and the chief baker had had in prison, and how Joseph had interpreted them correctly. So he told his master about it, and the Pharaoh sent for Joseph. Joseph interpreted the dreams immediately. He told the Pharaoh that the 7 fat cows and the 7 plump ears of corn symbolized 7 years of plenty, but the 7 lean cows and the 7 thin ears of corn signified 7 years of famine that were to follow. He advised the Pharaoh to appoint a wise and discreet man who would instruct the people to save 1/5 of all their food to store away during the 7 good years, so that they would have plenty on hand when the 7 years of famine followed. Then the Pharaoh said to Joseph, "Because God has showed you all this, there is no one so discreet and wise as you." So the Pharaoh appointed Joseph governor and placed him in charge of the food conservation program, and told him to put it into effect immediately. He dressed Joseph in the finest linen and put a golden chain of office around his neck, and thus the boy who had been a slave became the second most important man in the whole Egypt. In the 7 plentiful years that followed, he commanded everyone to set aside a portion of their harvest, and soon the government warehouses were bulging with food. Then, as Joseph predicted, at the end of the 7 good years, a great famine spread over the face of the earth. Everywhere people were starving. But when food gave out in Egypt, that Pharaoh sent the people to Joseph, and he opened the warehouses, and there was plenty for all. Subsequently, all the neighboring countries began to feel the pangs of starvation. Hearing of the food stored up in Egypt, they sent messengers to try to buy some. Now back in Canaan, when Jacob, Joseph's father, heard that there was plenty of food in Egypt, he sent his older sons to go there and see of what they could buy corn. But he didn't send Benjamin, who was born after Joseph was sold into slavery, because he was afraid for the young boy's sake. When the brothers arrived in Egypt, they were ushered into Joseph's presence. They didn't recognize Joseph because he was now grown, and they never dreamed that he could possibly be the governor of Egypt. Joseph recognized them because they hadn't changed much, since they were grown men at the time they sold into slavery. "Why are you here?" Joseph asked. "We have come here to buy food," they answered. "You lie," Joseph scowled. "You are spies who have been sent here to gather information about the famine in our land." "No, my lord," they protested. "We are your servants. Our father sent us here to buy food. Only our youngest brother Benjamin remained at home." Joseph was anxious to meet his younger brother, whom he had never seen, so he continued to insist that they were spies. "You must prove the truth of what you say," he demanded. "You must bring your younger brother here, and to make sure that you do, I will hold one of you as my prisoner." So Joseph instructed his soldiers to throw one of his brothers, Simon, into jail until the others returned with Benjamin. When the brothers arrived home and told Jacob about Joseph's terms, the father was deeply grieved. "I have already lost my son Joseph," he groaned, "and perhaps Simon too has perished. Would you force me to lose little Benjamin also?" But at last Jacob relented and told his sons to return to Egypt with Benjamin. When the brothers again appeared before Joseph, he said, "You are honorable men. Because you returned, as I commanded, I will release your other brother Simon." So Joseph sat his brothers down in a big banquet. Then, at the height of the feast, he revealed to them who he was. "I am your brother Joseph, whom you sold into slavery." When they heard this, the brothers became afraid. But Joseph assured them that he wasn't angry or intent on seeking revenge. "It was God's will that you should do this to me," he said. "God sent me here to preserve our people. For you've withstood 2 years of famine, and there are still 5 more to endure." And Joseph asked about his father, and when his brothers told him that he still lived, Joseph ordered them to bring Jacob and their children and grandchildren and herds and flocks to Egypt. "I will see that you have enough food and live in contentment until the next 5 years of famine are over," he added. So Joseph's brothers went home and returned with their father and all their family. And because of Joseph's generous and forgiving nature, they lived happily and prosperous in Egypt for many, many years. And now, on the very last page, we come to something a little different. A public service message from the publishers themselves. The best Second Life sticker. Religion and Second Life. Every avatar and community should display this important message. It shows a family in their Sunday best stepping through the glowing archway of a virtual chapel, while the car in the foreground proudly displays a sticker. The ad even tells the readers exactly how to get one. Send a note to Religion and Second Life. Share the image freely as a public service. Just a quick note before we close the book. The page isn't random filler. In 1955, America was deep in the Cold War, and there was a very real nationwide campaign called Religion and American Life. Churches, businesses, and even the government encouraged families to put religious stickers on their cars as a visible sign of faith and moral strength. It was a part of the whole era's push to show the world that America stood for something higher than godless communism. So when this comment slipped that same idea into the Second Life graphic, encouraging avatars to display their own virtual sticker, it was doing exactly what 1950s comics often did, blending entertainment with a message that felt important at the time. And that was Tales of the Great Book, issue number 1, February 1955. John Lady and the team at Famous Funnies didn't just draw Bible stories, they gave them the scale and drama of the silver screen. If you enjoyed this serious, respectful dive into Golden Age storytelling, let me know in the comments what other classic comic we should restore next. Hit subscribe, ring the bell, and I'll see you back here next time. The nightmares go. And Felix Lebeski. Good night.